Hello and welcome. This is Self-Control, How to Build a Better Life, the podcast that inspires you to take control of your mind and your mindset to go forward and build a life that you want to live. My name is Patrick Strevens, and this podcast is something of a journey for me. It's my journey to peace of mind. This show will share with you thought processes, behaviors, tips, tricks, things that I've used to inch myself towards a better life over the years in the hopes that if such a thing were possible, it might be able to help somebody else as well. More importantly, I'm speaking with guests who are further down the road in their quest for a better life, and that continues today. This is part 2 of my conversation with Vic Pipke. Vic was for many, many years a police officer and in fact a member of the SWAT team here in Edmonton, Alberta. Following a life-altering injury, he was forced to find a new career path after his recovery. And that's not easy, but he did it, and he did it very, very well. The first part of this conversation is just loaded, I would say, with wisdom from Vic and some good conversation between the two of us about mindset improving, not being afraid to remove emotional connection, not being afraid to forgive yourself, for instance, contextualizing experiences as positive, all these things. It's essentially about flipping from a negative mindset to a positive mindset. And then going forward, Vic shares a little bit of his life story, why he got into policing, and his concept of actually becoming immortal. So you're definitely going to want to hear this. It's pretty wild stuff. I really enjoyed it. And finally, Vic will share the story of his life-altering injury that he suffered during a workout in 2015, how he went into the depths, into what he calls a pity party, and how he then rose up into a new career where he's helping people even more so now than he feels he was in law enforcement. So really a great conversation. I was really humbled and gracious to sit down with Vic for a good hour and a half. I hope you'll enjoy part 2 here. There's really a lot to take home and a lot to be inspired by. So I'll get out of the way and you can check it out. Here is part 2 of my sit down with Mr. Vic Pipke. Now, I guess I'd be curious to ask, do you find that when you meet people in here and you're consulting them, I don't know what it is we're talking about. It's a mindset, right? It's an act of getting in the game mindset. Is that missing from people generally, or is that too easy to say?
I think generally, yes. Mm-hmm. I think it is. I just like I said before, I think we just get so beaten up with life, right, that we just forget that we control our game. Yes. Right? You control. One of my mentors, Real Michaud, he says, The only 2 things you control are your attitude and your activity, right? And they feed off of each other. Okay. And then Simon Sinek goes even further, right? If you change your mindset, it changes your emotion about something. Your emotion actually drives the chemical balances in your body. If you can change the chemical balances in your body, you're going to change your actions to achieve whatever it is you're trying to achieve. Wow. Extra action will create more results. Those results will manifest and reinforce the belief that you started with in the first place. Right. And now you've changed the world. Exactly. In some way. And you just, and the great thing is in that circle, you can jump in anywhere. Wow. You can jump in anywhere in that circle that you want. If you want to start with thinking differently, sure, fine. If maybe you've got control of your thoughts and you want to jump in on the, I need to change the way I feel about things, because some people can do that, right? If I'm around a certain environment, I feel better. Well, if you feel better, that's going to change your chemical balances, which is going to change your activity, which is going to change your results, which will change your belief, which will then reinforce your thoughts. And it works the opposite way too. Oh, we can work that circle the other way. Well, I mean, it works the other way if you have crappy thoughts. Yes, 100%. Crappy emotions, crappy activity, crappy results, crappy beliefs reinforces that bad thought. Now, have you found any utility to removing, or let's say, reducing your emotional connection to things that happen in life? That's one thing. That's a step that I had to make, where it was like, I'm getting too emotionally reactive to something that happens, when it's like, if I just can remove that, even 50%, and not be so down in the dumps about something you did wrong, and just see it as maybe an invitation to grow or do better next time, does that do anything for you? Yeah, I think that exactly what you said is a healthy way to look at it, right? It's every circumstance, everything that's happened to you in your life. Number one, take accountability. Right. You are where you are in your life as a result of every decision you've made beforehand. Right. And when you take accountability for your entire life, it's scary, but it's empowering,
right,
and it's uplifting, because now you know that whatever decision you make from this point on, you have control.
Isn't that crazy?
You have 100% control. And so part of it is forgiving yourself, right?
Yeah, that's huge, man. Holy.
I say, man, I made mistakes. But here's the thing. If I make a mistake and I don't take something from it, I don't learn from it, well, that's just a disservice to me and everyone around me. But if I use that as fuel to get better, right?
That's how that growth continues, right? It's like if every experience is suddenly not negative or positive, but if every experience is, I guess, just, well, it could all be positive even. It's a step. I really screwed that up, but at least I know, and now I'm not going to do it again, and whatever.
Yeah.
You don't use it, you don't reduce your, you don't, what am I trying to say? You don't put that weight on your shoulder. It's something about, not taking on the weight of a failure. It's like, why bother?
Yeah.
Why bother?
I like the analogy of stress and the feeling of failure, whether it's the feeling of not being adequate or being insignificant, whatever it is. It's like carrying luggage. The longer you carry it, the heavier it gets.
No kidding.
But you can choose when you want to put it down.
Right.
Put your luggage down. Put your crap down. And move forward with the freedom. You're going to feel a lot better.
Big time. And I always find myself asking the guests, because they have a perspective that I don't have, is like, what is it that lets people or forces people or makes people hold on to that luggage way longer than they need to?
I think it's different for each person. I think sometimes they're comfortable. Some people, because of their mentality, they're victims, and they don't realize that they don't have to be, but they're comfortable being a victim.
Right.
So the longer I hold on to this, the longer I can hold myself hostage, which for some people means that, they're more dramatic about certain things to attract attention, which then gives them significance.
Right.
Right?
That makes,
you know what, I have a crappy life, and the more I complain about it outwardly, the more people pay attention to me, and now I feel significant. Okay, well, it's not good significance, though.
Right.
Put that stuff down, and I mean, it's not easy to do. Let's be honest. It's not.
For sure.
You didn't wake up one morning all of a sudden and go, "This is what I want to do for the rest of my life," and it was roses ever since.
Right.
It comes with time. It comes with work, and the cool thing is, if you associate yourself with different people, you'll get different results. And I'm not talking even personally associating with people.
Sure.
Listening to a podcast is associating with the people on that podcast.
Sure.
Reading a good book is associating with that author. Right? If you're putting good things in, it's no different than, being unhealthy but sitting on your couch eating hamburgers and drinking pop all day and expecting to get well. You're going to have to do something different. You're going to have to get out of that environment, get into a new environment, associate with different people. I call my car isn't my car anymore. It's a rolling university. I don't listen to any crap in my car anymore.
Okay.
It's all good podcasts. It's all inspiring talks or audio that lifts me up, right?
Yeah.
When I'm in my car, I mean, most people, it's dead time.
Dead time, or worse, right? Like I was thinking about if you got poor posture going on, and you're not, and then no wonder people road rage, right? Because they're driving around, drinking coffee, hunched over, listening to God knows what.
Yeah.
Well, you're waiting for someone to cut you off.
Yeah, exactly. And so, if you look at those points in your life where maybe it's like, like some people are like, I don't have time to sit down and listen to a podcast, but you drive a half hour to work every day.
You got time.
You got time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just no one's probably ever suggested it.
Now, one thing I like that you brought this up, because I'm curious about, like, you're doing a lot of, you're talking about reading, listening to podcasts, and that is obviously it's helping you build what you're building here. Is there a time when you turn off that external influence and really try and go inside and see what does Vic think today about these issues? Is that part of your sort of routine?
Yeah, I mean, because not every podcast you're going to believe or agree with, right? There's going to be certain things like, I don't know if I really agree with that. Right. So I think you always have to be critical. I have no problem with people being skeptical or critical. I have a problem when that turns into cynicism. Right.
Interesting.
Right. Like critical is, questioning things until you find out the answer. Cynical is questioning things even after you have the answer.
And then applying a moral judgment to the world, I guess.
Exactly, right? Because, I mean, in this industry, right, the financial industry, obviously, strength of character is a big deal. Morals, ethics, integrity.
Sure.
And that's one thing that we profess, very, very loudly. We set a standard in our team that if you don't have certain morals and ethics and integrity, we'll choose not to work with you.
Okay.
Right? It's not that you might be a bad person. It's just our clients deserve the best. And so, I mean, that's something we're always looking out for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think it's important, and that's not just in business. That's in everything. Now, what is strength of character? Well, it's doing the right thing when no one's looking. And
sure.
Some people go as far as say, as long as it's moral, ethical, and legal, then that's strength of character.
Sure. Well,
I change that a little bit because I don't think everything that's legal is moral.
Sure.
Just watch any congressional hearing when you have some big pharma or big oil company saying we operated within the bounds of the law. Yeah, still doesn't mean you didn't do anything wrong.
Right. Yeah. All that stuff still seeped into the water supply.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Oh, but it was legal.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, you just hurt a whole bunch of people, but I'm glad you stayed within the bounds of the law. Good for you.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. On paper, you're doing right.
Yeah.
I think and again, that's funny because we started talking about this and we keep coming back as like these ideas of, let's say, law, government, big institutions. People sort of subscribe to those and say, well, that's morality. That's how, and so if that's taken care of, I don't have to worry too much about that. I guess what I'm doing with this show, hopefully, is inspiring people to maybe think for themselves outside of that institutional or collective, think for yourself, essentially.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't like bashing other places, other people, other things because I'm not there. I will say this: there are a number of people that work out of the office that I work out of here, who used to work in the banking industry.
Oh yeah,
and they left for very specific reasons. And when I was looking to move into this industry, I actually looked at the traditional industry, and everyone I talked to said to a person, the thing they disliked most about the financial industry was that typically your number one role is to maximize profits for shareholders or a corporation or a company.
Gotcha.
Obviously, they want to do what's best for the client, but if what's best for the client clashed with the needs of the corporation, the corporation won.
Sure.
Right? And so I didn't want to be swayed by that in the traditional industry. That's why I went into looking to be an independently contracted broker with no one controlling me, so I could advocate for people and not companies.
Okay.
Right? And you know what? I looked at a number of different organizations, but the only one that truly gave me the autonomy to be completely independently contracted was World Financial Group. Right?
Okay.
And I mean, elephant in the room. Type in World Financial Group on the internet, and you're going to see a whole bunch of stuff. Some really good, some really bad. 100%, I get it. But I think it's very misunderstood what World Financial Group is, because really all it is a business system.
Sure.
It gives me the infrastructure to run my business as an independently contracted broker. In some ways, very similar to a franchise.
Yep.
Right? Just without a whole bunch of upfront cost and all that sort of stuff. But what it also does is it means that every person that you run into, you're dealing with a different person with a different personality, right?
Yeah, sure.
And so, I mean,
let's can't be a bad thing.
No, exactly, right? Because you're going to associate to different people differently, but there's still going to be bad people. Right. And I'm in no delusion that every police officer that puts on a uniform is a good person. Some slip through the cracks. Right. Right.
Or become, like you were saying.
Exactly, right? So just like any other industry, you're going to have people that maybe sometimes make bad decisions for whatever reason. Could be for bad things in their life that are happening, that stress causes them to make a bad decision. I don't know. I'm not here to judge. But all you can control is yourself. So, I like the idea of being independent, of being able to be contracted independently so I can serve other people. And it also means I get to control the strength of character of my agents that I work with. Because I can refuse to work with people because I don't think you have very good character.
Wouldn't that be nice? As an employee, you can't choose who you're working with.
Yeah, you work with whoever the boss says they hired next, right?
Right.
And I mean, our business just went up massively when my wife came on board, right? So, because she's got outrageous strength of character, which was awesome. But yeah, I mean, she used to work in one of the largest law firms in Alberta.
Oh, wow.
Was a major cog in that wheel, and she walked away from that so-called job security because she loves what we do. She loves how we help people, how we put people first. It's not just about making a buck.
Not about making a buck. So that's great. I'm curious about what it is that drove you into policing. Like, at what age did you decide that was the move?
It's the only thing I ever thought of doing, to be honest.
Yeah.
The only thing I ever thought to do. My parents, my grandparents, my grandfather in particular, he was a World War II veteran. And my parents were always in the service industry.
Okay.
Was always kind of raised with that idea that the most fulfilling life you'll have is a life of service to other people. You help enough other people out, and you'll eventually get what you need to be happy, right, in life. And I mean, to say because my grandpa, when I was a little boy, he was my hero. He was a war hero, right? So he was my hero. I was like, oh, I want to be in the Army. I remember being a really young boy, and that's what I wanted to do. And growing up in the 70s and 80s, it's not like there was a plethora of conflict everywhere. So I chose law enforcement at a very young age. And then the first time I ever saw the show SWAT, I was like, that's what I want to do, right?
Yep.
And it was one of those things that I was blessed because I talked to, like before COVID happened, I used to go into high schools and I used to do financial seminars for high school kids.
Okay.
And when I would talk to them, I'd ask them, what do you want to do when you're done high school? Like, I have no idea. Like, they're in grade 12 and they have no idea.
Right.
And I feel very blessed that I never had that turmoil because I knew this is where I'm going to go to school. This is when I'm going to get hired. This is how long I'm going to be a police officer. Like, I was very clear, right? It's that focus.
Sure.
I was very clear. I had a very clear vision of what I wanted my future to look like. And that's all I focused on. And so, it was, as long as I can remember, I wanted to be a policeman.
Hey, but isn't that interesting that you say a life of service would be fulfilling, and you're finding that to be true now?
Even more so now.
Even more so now.
Even more so now, because I can one great story I love to tell is during my time with the as a police officer, I got to do some training with a gentleman by the name of Hans Marrero.
Okay.
One of the at the time, probably arguably one of the most dangerous human beings walking the face of the earth.
Okay.
And he taught hand-to-hand combat to the military, like all over the world. Like he was well sought after.
Okay.
And so we were able to do a course with him, and the course was amazing. One of the best courses I've ever taken in my entire life. But the most impactful thing was when he was telling us his story about how when he was a young boy, and if Hans ends up listening to this and I bastardize this story, I apologize in advance. I'm going off of 18-year memory after a brain injury, so I'm going to try and get it. But the story at the end is the key thing. But basically, when he was a young boy, grew up in a really big family. I think there was like 11 brothers and sisters. At one point when he was a young boy, his parents got approached by a gentleman who ended up being his trainer. And he said, listen, there's something unique about your son, something special. And I think with, very concentrated training and guidance, he could make a pretty big impact in the world. And so I'd like to train him.
Okay. And
his parents said, okay. I think he was in California at the time. And he said, okay, but I got to take him to China.
Whoa.
He's like, oh. Hang on a second, right?
Okay, yeah.
And he joked that, well, there was 11 mouths to feed. If there was one less, my parents were all for it, right? But I'm sure they did their vetting and all that. And so they eventually allowed him to go as a young man.
And what year would this have been that this was happening to him?
Oh, geez. That would have been probably in the early 70s, mid 70s.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe mid to late 70s.
Okay.
And so they let him go. And when he got there, he expected it to be this huge training facility, training these warriors and all this other stuff, right? But there was only like a half dozen, maybe 10 people there. And so he said, the first couple of years they were training about building people and building your mind and learning how to heal. And it was nothing about like the typical what you would think of as, a fighting school or a warrior school or anything like that. It was about healing and growing people. And then he said after that, they started to get into like the meat and potatoes type of thing.
Sure.
But he said one day he finally got up the courage to talk to his sensei, his master. And he said, you know what, I've always been baffled is that with what we teach people, it's so impactful. Why don't you have hundreds and hundreds or thousands of people who are teaching them this, right? You could make this big school and it could be impactful in so many people's lives. And the answer he got is something that stuck with me since that day. And he said, you know what, I could do that, but what I teach people will die with them, or it might last one generation. But if I can find 10 key people and I can pour all of my knowledge and experience and love and joy and everything into those 10 key people and teach them how to do the same thing I did, I'll now be immortal.
Whoa.
People may never know what my name is, but what I teach people will last forever.
Wow.
And that's what I try to do. I want whatever I do today to live forever. Regardless if there's my name's on a building or and be like, hey, who is that great grandfather that left us this estate?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think his name was Bill. I can't remember. Like, I really don't care.
Yeah.
But I want to be immortal in the way that I want to leave an imprint that transcends time.
Whoa. I didn't expect to get that deep, Vic, but thank you. No, that's so immortal in a way that transcends time, because all this knowledge and skill that you've built for yourself, in some ways it's not you, right? It lives inside you. You act it out, but you have to transfer it for it to.
And it's not mine. Right. It's not mine to keep.
Right. You have to teach it.
I have to give it to other people. Right. It didn't belong to the people that shared it with me. So it's not for me to keep it.
Right.
I'm just a vessel for all the things I've learned before to pass on to other people. Maybe I filter it differently. Maybe I package it differently. Maybe it talks to one person but doesn't talk to another. But it's for me to give away. Yeah.
That's true service, isn't it? To just sort of be like a node or a channel that things pass through from wherever to me or you or whoever.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, all right, that's great. I'm going to take that home and chew on it, because I've been thinking about being a servant to. I use the word God, but it's not God per se. But it's like you talked about
a higher power.
A higher power. Like you talked about the way things vibrate. Everything vibrates. There's energy that's been here since the beginning that is passing through me and you. And I just think about, maybe it is just service, but if I can just channel that in a way, if I just get out of my own way, take the ego, reduce the ego, take the ego aside, and just serve others, because then I master myself. Because to do that as impactfully and efficiently as I can, I have to be my best self too. So it's the yin yang, I guess.
Yeah, and like you said, you mentioned it earlier. It's all about growing, right? If you're not growing, you're dying. It's a universal truth, right? When plants stop growing, they start dying, and human beings are the same, right? If people want longevity, well, keep growing. Just keep growing.
Don't stop.
Just don't stop, right? And it's not like you're going to go run a marathon every day until you're 112 years old, but. No. Do something every day to make yourself a little bit better than you were yesterday.
That's beautiful.
That's it.
Go for a walk. Right.
Go for a walk.
And it's the small goals that really start the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Would you, I know we're getting toward the end, but would you mind, maybe as much as you'd like, just to share the story of what happened to you when you had that workout and you had the injury? Would you mind?
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
I think people would like to hear, because that set you on the path that you're on now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was about 6 years into my career with the SWAT team, and I was getting ready to plan my next steps, right? To, maybe get promoted, then maybe one day, be a supervisor of my own SWAT team, right? And that was really the goal. And, while we were getting ready to take that next step, we were in the middle of what's called a runoff. And basically, runoff is a competition that lasts a couple of days that tests the competence and abilities of members that want to get into the unit.
Okay.
But in order to set the standards for all of the runoff competitions, we have to do them ourselves so we can set that standard, because we can't expect more from someone that we can't do ourselves.
Gotcha.
So we have to do kind of a mini runoff, and it was during the middle of a shift where we're in the gym and we're kind of going through this mini runoff, and right in the middle of one of the events was actually a Jacob's ladder. So I'm on this Jacob's ladder, and the goal is to reach a certain amount of steps as fast as you can. And I've never been a distance guy. I hate distance running. I was a sprinter in college. I played football in university. Make me run fast, and then I can take a break.
Right.
Right? Yeah. So this was an event that was right up my alley. So I'm like, okay, let's go. And I get on this thing, and I'm just pumping. I'm going hard, and I'm feeling really great. And all of a sudden, it's like someone shut all the lights off.
Whoa.
Someone hit me in the head with a baseball bat. My entire body felt like I was on fire. I couldn't feel my extremities. My vision was almost gone. It had narrowed to like a little kind of point. And I went from like 100% speed and power to next to nothing. In a millisecond, it was gone. I'm like, what the hell? But being super stubborn,
right?
Lots of testosterone, lots of ego.
Sure.
The rest of the team's watching me. I don't want to let them down, and I'm a really good soldier.
Right.
I just finished.
Whoa.
Right. Didn't realize what had happened. Just thought, man, I must have just hit the wall. I was just pushing too hard.
Right.
Finished the runoff. By the end of it, I was like, man, I don't feel good. I really don't feel good. Like I couldn't even get up off the ground. Laid on the gym floor for a while, and of course, all of my fellow tactical members were so understanding.
Of course,
kick you in the foot, go, come on, wimp, get up. I'm like, yeah, I really, oh wow, this is not good. Finished our shift. We were on a shift that was done in the evening, so we went for a drink afterwards. Sat down to have a drink. I had maybe 2 sips of the beer that I was having, and was like, I got to go home. I had a headache so bad it felt like I was gonna vomit in the middle of the restaurant. And of course, you like, seriously, you're leaving? Like, you haven't even finished your beer. Like, that's, and right there should have been a clue, because
something's wrong.
I grew up in a German household. Okay. You don't throw beer away.
Right.
Right?
Sure. Yeah.
But it was like, okay, I got to go. So I left, went home that night, went to bed, woke up the next morning, still not feeling good. Just thought it was just a really bad headache. Like, I must have really overdone it. Like, I've never overdone it that bad before, but this is really bad. So, just sat in a dark room because I had a massive headache. My ears were ringing. I had massive tinnitus. All I wanted to do was sleep. Fast forward to the afternoon, so almost 12 hours after the industry.
Oh, okay.
My wife came home and basically looked at me in the face and said, "You gotta go look in the mirror. We gotta take you to the hospital."
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't have to go to the hospital. I have a headache. Well, I'm gonna go to the hospital and go, I got a headache. Right?
Yeah.
I'm a big tough guy.
Sure.
I just got a headache. So I went and looked in the mirror, and one side of my face was starting to sag. I was starting to have a stroke.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, let's go. So we jump in the car, 'cause, like, the hospital was like 5 minutes away. So we drive over, go into Emerge, and I'm still like letting people in front of me, right? I'm like, oh, you must be worse than me. I just have a headache.
Stroking out, and you're like,
I'm just like, go ahead, right? And my wife's hitting me, going, stop it! You got to see someone. I'm like, okay, whatever. And so I get into triage, and they ask me some questions. They take my blood pressure. They're looking at my eyes and stuff, and they're like, okay, go sit in the waiting room. I'm like, oh, great. We know what it's like sitting in a waiting room and Emerge, a busy Emerge, right? I'm like, great. We're going to be here for like 12 hours. So I go sit down, and I sat down, and I was just like, oh, what am I going to do for the next 12 hours? And I was like, Vic? I was like, huh? Come with me. Okay. So I get up, walk into the back of the ER. I go, put this gown on, put this gown on. I barely got the gown on, and I'm on the stretcher. They're putting an IV in me, and they're wheeling me off to a CT scan. And they're starting to pump a bunch of stuff into me.
Whoa.
I'm like, what's going on? And there's a lineup of beds of people waiting to get in the CT scan.
Mm-hmm.
They wheel me past everyone,
Whoa.
right into the CT machine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in there. They put a bunch of radioactive dye in me, made me glow for a little while. Finished. They bring me back to the ER room. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, I don't understand what's happening yet. Mm-hmm. And I was there maybe 2 minutes. And the curtain flies open. Nurses come in. They start injecting me with a whole bunch of blood thinners into my stomach.
Whoa.
And the doctor comes in. He says, listen, I don't want to alarm you, but this is super serious. You had something called a carotid dissection, which is a tear in your carotid artery lining, the wall of your carotid artery. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're very small, and it just causes maybe a little bit of discomfort and headache, but yours was massive, and it caused the entire wall of your carotid artery to collapse. You've had no blood flow to your brain, to one side of your brain for the last almost
12 hours?
12 hours.
Yeah. How are you alive at this point?
They don't know. They have no idea, right? He said, but we're rushing you to the stroke ward. You're going to be under surveillance to see if we can reestablish the blood flow. If we can't, we're going to have to do surgery. The problem is at the site of the surgery, it's right at the base of the brain where all of the nerves come together, and we have a 50-50 chance of curing it or killing you.
50-50, huh?
50-50. Toss a coin.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So I'm like, well, I hope these blood thinners and stuff work, because I really don't want you to cut me open with that low odds, right?
Yeah.
So went into the stroke ward, was under surveillance for a couple of days. They did a few more tests, make sure there were no blood clots flowing through the rest of my brain and whatnot, because without any blood flow going, obviously that blood can now congeal.
Oh, yeah.
And then when they reestablish that route, all of a sudden all that blood's going to go into the brain, and they want to be like, okay, are you going to have a massive stroke now because we've done that?
Right.
So, they're able to stabilize things. The headaches have never gone away. Since the day of the injury, so every second of every day since then, almost 8 years now, I've had a headache.
You have a headache right now?
Right now, yeah, and I got tinnitus ringing like there's an air raid siren going on.
Really?
Right now, yeah.
Well, I appreciate you soldiering through that for us.
You know what? It's one of those things. And I'll be honest. The first couple of months was a massive pity party for me.
Sure.
Why me?
Right.
Right. I've never done drugs. I don't drink heavy. I eat healthy. I work out continuously. Why me?
Did they ever give you a sense of why that happened to you?
They don't really know. They seen what potentially the strain that you put yourself under on a consistent basis working out the way I did.
You went hard?
I would go hard every day, basically to the point where I'm puking in the gym. Okay. Right? If I didn't puke, it wasn't a good workout.
Yeah, okay.
But you push yourself to that level. They said that could have caused it, but then we don't know if because you trained like that, this would have happened anyways, and because you trained that way, it saved your life. So we don't know. We don't know if it caused it or if it saved your life, or maybe a little bit of both. We have no idea. But yeah, it was a couple of months of just feeling sorry for myself. But that's where I started to make that decision. Well, I knew my career would never be the same again. Yeah. I wasn't going back to work, right? And my doctor told me, because I went to see my family doctor about a week later, and I was like, okay, so when do I get to go back to work? And he said, you don't get it. You're done. You're done. He goes, you elevate your blood pressure a little bit right now, you could die.
Wow. Is that still the case today?
Yeah, I have blood pressure meds that I got to take and blood thinners and all that other stuff that I take. But today, it's more a reminder of how blessed I am.
Right.
Because I shouldn't have survived.
Yeah. It makes no sense.
I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Right? So when and hey, the world isn't all sunshine and roses. I still struggle. There's still days I wake up because of headache and whatnot. I didn't sleep at all, and I'm like, oh God, I really don't want today to happen. But it's just the cool thing is I get a choice of how I see my day every day. And every day I can wake up and choose to see it for the bad things that happen to me, or I can choose to make it the best day ever.
And 9 times out of 10, you probably choose
the best day ever. I still have my bad days.
For sure.
Where it's like, hey, I just got to sit in a dark room and I got to have a pity party for a day. I'll be okay tomorrow.
Right.
Right? But yeah, it's not all it's not every day is perfect, right? And I think that's the cool thing about life is not every day will be perfect, and there will be challenges, and it's what we do with those challenges that really define us and define our character.
Well said.
Yeah.
Does it give you a so-called new lease on life, or like what was the transition like from out of the pity party into like, okay, I gotta put a foot forward here and do something?
It was slow.
Yeah.
It was a slow transition. I remember the first time I left the house was to drive to the grocery store.
Okay.
And because of the brain injury that had happened from lack of blood flow, I mean, the doctor said it's incredible that all of the brain damage you have has not affected your mobility, hasn't affected your speech, right? You know, I have a few problems thinking of words sometimes. Word finding I have some trouble with every once in a while.
Okay.
My memory isn't the best. Just ask my wife, which, you know,
so she runs your calendar.
Right, which is pretty good. She's like, you didn't remember this? I got a brain injury.
Yeah, what do you want from me?
I got a brain injury. Right, it's a good excuse.
It's a great get out of jail card.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay. And I use it. Yeah. But yeah, it was slow. But I remember taking this drive to the store, and it was maybe 5 blocks. And just the movement, the sound, everything, I went from feeling good to basically I can't even get out of the car. I feel like I'm going to pass out, right?
Okay.
So it was a very slow, gradual, just to get some energy back. That was the big thing, is just to get a little bit of energy, let your brain heal enough so that you can actually start doing things. And then it was a lot of just working on me, my mindset.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I started as an agent with World Financial Group that I started associating with different people who then encouraged me, hey, you should read this book. Hey, you should read this book. Hey, why don't you talk to this person? Why don't you associate with talk to this? And that was really the catalyst that started to change that mindset. Right? It was really, really interesting. And like I said before, being on both sides of being in law enforcement and out of law enforcement, I know what that's like. And I hear so many police officers when I talk to them now, it's very dark, very limited mindset, a lot of complaining, a lot of, right? But I get it. They need to vent, because I was there too. It's not like they're doing anything wrong. It's just they haven't experienced anything different.
Sure.
But man, it was a long road.
Yeah. So how long even would you say from the injury to where you were in like just full convalescence or whatever? Like how long before you could even go out?
I would say it would probably be. It happened in March. I went back to work on a shorter schedule just to kind of see where I was in September.
Okay.
So about 6 months.
Good 6 months where you were just laid up.
Yeah. And for the first month, I probably slept 20 hours a day.
Oh, man.
My brain just shut down. Right?
That's still amazing. Like, do you ever dwell on why you got a chance, or is it just not worth it?
You know what? I think it's totally worth it. And I reflect on it frequently, but not from an idea of why me or what could have happened. I believe, and regardless of whether you're religious or spiritual or not, whatever, I believe that injury happened for me, not to me. Right? Like Tony Robbins says, life happens for you, not to you.
Wow. Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I wasn't on the path I was supposed to be, and I mean, I think life just kind of said, okay, if you're not going to make the decision to make a change, we're going to make it for you. Right? And so it's like, so every day on the anniversary of my injury, I declare that my rebirth day.
Nice. Rebirth day.
Yeah.
March, do you remember the day?
March 4th.
March 4th.
2015.
2015.
Yeah, so it'll be 8 years this March.
Okay. And then you were full on doing financial consulting by 2017, you said?
2017, I started on a part-time basis. Okay. Because I didn't, I'm a cop. I'm a cop at the time. I'm still very skeptical of things.
Right.
I want to investigate everything to the nth degree. I want to say, okay, is this the best option for me? Is this the best offer? Am I going to be able to make the biggest impact? And so I started part-time. because I also wasn't going to put my family in jeopardy and walk away from a really good paying job.
Right.
To try an industry that I didn't know if it would work. Very quickly, though, I fell in love with this industry. I fell in love for what we do. I fell in love with the idea that we get to make a massive impact in people's lives that very few people are making. I fell in love with the fact that I get to talk to people with their goals and dreams, and that I can help them make those goals and dreams come true, right? I fell in love with the people, the atmosphere. I loved being a SWAT guy, and that pales in comparison to what I do now.
Wow.
Absolutely pales in comparison.
Yeah, and people wouldn't think that necessarily.
No. Right? I'm very proud of what I did.
Sure.
But I think it was just a training ground to get me to here.
Interesting.
It provided me the tools I need to be able to be a leader, to relate to people on a different level, to be able to build that empathy. Because I wasn't always so empathetic when I was younger, and I thought I knew everything.
Sure.
Right? I carried my soapbox around with me.
Gotcha.
Right? Just ask any of my friends. Sometimes I wonder how they're still my friends.
Right. Yeah, well.
But no, I think it was just a training ground. Right? It was a great phase of my life to prepare me for the next phase of my life, and who knows where this is going to go.
Yeah.
Right. I'm a firm believer that this is great right now, and I can see me doing this forever. But in the very least, this is going to be a foundation for my wife and I to do way bigger things with starting charities, and my wife has like the biggest heart. And she wants to feed children. But she doesn't want to create a foundation to feed children. She actually wants to get in a kitchen and actually physically go and feed children. Right? So I don't know what kind of charity that looks like, but that's one of the things that we want to do.
Beautiful.
Right? So this is a foundation for me to make a massive impact in people's lives, to be significant, to help a whole bunch of people get what they want, and eventually we're going to be able to achieve a bunch of the goals and dreams that we have. And really impact people in a way that I probably never would have imagined 8 years ago.
Wow. And this might be the middle act, and that third act, who knows?
Who knows?
Could be down in Miami.
Could be.
Wouldn't that be all right?
That'd be okay. I would not balk at that at all, at least in the winter.
Yeah, for sure.
At least in the winter.
For sure. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you for one more thing. Could you tell me the single craziest thing that you ran across as a SWAT team guy that you can tell me?
Well, yeah, some of the crazy things. You know what? I will tell you a story. We were, when we get together again now, we kind of talk about the dumb things. We don't remember the serious things. We remember the silly things. When we messed up, we fell down, blah, blah, blah. But we seem to do a lot of things for the first time. And not always good. But we actually had a situation where we had a lady in a house who was mentally disturbed. She had a firearm. And so negotiators were talking to her. And so she wasn't talking to them for a little while. So they asked us to put out a loudhailer so we could talk to her through the loudhailer. It's just a big a big speaker, right? Sure. That we have a microphone for back behind cover, to encourage her to get back on the phone with the negotiators. So we go and we put this thing out behind bullet blockers and everything else, bullet bunkers, and we go back, we retreat back, and our team leader is talking to the lady, Mrs. So-and-so, could you please get on the phone, yada, yada, yada. And we got a sniper out who's our visual person, right? Like, it's not a sniper. I mean, obviously they have the capability to do things if things go really bad, but it's more hey, they're the eyes on because they can't be seen, right? And so they're watching, and all of a sudden we can hear, Team 1 from S1, target's out of the house.
Oof.
Okay, so we're getting ready. Oh, target's walking towards the team. Like, great. But she doesn't have a weapon. Okay, that's good. And there's a little bit of a delay between when the sniper talks and we hear it, because it's got to go through a repeater.
Sure.
It's maybe a fraction of a second, but just enough to delay a response. All of a sudden he goes, we hear, Target's got the loudhailer, and she's walking back into the house. We're like, oh, crap. And so by the time we come around the corner, she's already in the house. We're like,
she's got a speaker.
She stole our loudhailer. Oh. So like, excuse me, ma'am. And so we're talking to her inside the house now. Could you bring back our loudhailer, right? And so that's something pretty hilarious. So like we just look back. Okay, now we know not to do that. Right. Put the loudhailer back over here where we can actually prevent her from taking it next time. Yeah, we got relieved from that call pretty quickly after that, and yeah, the debriefing from our sergeant was not fun.
I bet.
It wasn't fun.
She stole the speaker.
We look like idiots. Do you guys realize what just happened? I'm like, yeah, we know, sir. We know, boss. We got it. We totally got it. Yell at us all you need to because, yeah, that was bad.
That was bad.
That was bad.
Well, that was bad, but this was great, I would say.
Awesome.
Yeah, Vic, I hope you inspired our listeners to maybe think about a lot of different things, but
absolutely.
Be of service and don't be afraid to dream, I think, are two things I'm going to take away big time. So
absolutely. Yeah, and if anyone ever needs, a shoulder to lean on, an ear to listen to, I hope they know they can reach out. I'm all over the internet.
Awesome.
Facebook, Instagram. We got our own website, Vic Pipke's Financial Warriors.
Beautiful.
.ca. So, yeah, if anyone needs anything, we're here.
They're here, and they will serve you, and they'll get you thinking big. I think is
thinking big, baby.
Right on, Vic. Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. It's my pleasure spending time with you.
Thank you for watching this episode of Self-Control: How to Build a Better Life. I hope you enjoyed part 2 of my conversation with Vic Pipke. Whether it was his wisdom on mindset and personal responsibility, or you found inspiration in his story, the way he rose above what could have been a tragedy, the way he found the grit within himself to rebuild his whole life after such an unforeseen incident, and the way he's actually reframed it as being the path he was meant to be on is really incredible stuff. When we can have an experience like that with so much pain and suffering, and be able to see that as being the catalyst for a better life is, there's almost no words for it. So please keep it locked here for more video episodes. I should let you know I'm also doing audio only episodes as well, just some quick hitters on things I've done and things that I believe could help you improve your life as well. So check out the Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. There's extra content there. And of course, video episodes here on the YouTube. When I sit down with a guest, you'll be able to see our conversation in action. So, until I speak with you again, please remember that better is possible.